Incredible discovery. Single dad finds abandoned twin girls on Christmas Eve, unveiling a touching emotional journey of family and legacy. Mike could barely move for the weight on his chest, the exhaustion pulling at him like the cold air outside the diner. After an exhausting 12-hour shift serving coffee and burgers to grumpy locals, he slipped into the driver's seat of his old delivery van, the heater breaking the chill inside. The thought of his vibrant daughter Lily waiting at home kindled a flicker of hope, even as he braced himself for another grueling night. Just as he was starting the engine, a flicker of movement caught his eye near St. Matthew's Church. As he stepped out, the world around him transformed. The snow danced like confetti, but nothing could distract him from the heart-wrenching sight of two shivering twin girls huddled on the church steps. Their thin limbs trembled, faces red from the biting cold. The instinct to help overpowered him. Without a second's thought, he draped his coat around them, heart racing. His mind was a jumbled mess. How could he take them in? Could he even care for three girls when he was already scraping by to support one? A shadow of doubt settled on him as he brought them home. Lily, bright-eyed and ambitious, glanced up from her homework. The look on her face struck him hard, a mixture of compassion and uncertainty. Did she see these girls as a burden, or more importantly, as a reminder of the time she didn't get from him? The complicated swirl of emotions tightened in Mike's gut. He loved his daughter fiercely, but the thought of sharing her father's attention sent a gnawing anxiety through him. He busied himself with the twins, warming them up with blankets, feeding them the last remnants of the diner's leftover meals, but the joy they brought was shadowed by confusion. They were innocent, yet their presence stirred whispers of skepticism from neighbors who eyed the humble house with raised brows, judging. Would Mike falter? Could he really juggle two kids in addition to his own? What if he failed and abandoned the very promise he had made to Lily to always be there for her? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The doorbell rang unexpectedly the next afternoon. His heart dropped as he opened the door to find Clara, a social worker who seemed to embody the grim tasks of sifting through lives in turmoil. She was all business with her clipboard, her gaze scrutinizing the chaos that had unfolded. As the twins played quietly behind him, he felt the weight of his choices crashing down. What is their story? She asked, the implication of their future hanging in the air. His own pulse quickened as conflicting thoughts swirled. How could he possibly protect these girls without losing his own daughter in the process? Tension gripped him tighter with each question, each probing look. When Clara told him about the twins' mother, the once promising honor student lost to addiction, shame washed over him. Had he condemned these girls to further tragedy by trying to save them? As uncertainty churned within him, he turned to the one person he long trusted, Mrs. Thompson next door. How could he keep them together and somehow lift the burdens from their small shoulders while not letting Lily feel like she was losing him too? Seeking comfort in her aged wisdom would unfold layers of legacy he never anticipated. As Mike's world teetered, the realities of love and familial ties came crashing down around him like the heavy snow outside. With the choices he made now intertwining with the impending realities of who the twins really belonged to, Mike knew his life was standing on the edge of an unimaginable precipice. What would he find if he took that leap? The following morning, a glimmer of daylight crept through the curtains as the uncomfortable weight of yesterday's decisions hung in the air. Mike awoke early, a restless night having left him with little sleep. He was grateful that both Lily and the twins were still sleeping, granting him a few moments of solitude. It was in these precious seconds that he found himself grappling with a myriad of thoughts. Would taking on the twins mean shattering the life he had built with Lily? What if he could not give them all the love and attention they deserved? Just then, Lily's voice broke through his musings, bright and hopeful. "Dad, can we do something fun today?" The excitement in her tone struck him like an arrow, sharp and heavy. Could he, in good conscience, indulge her whims when his heart was troubled by the shadows of uncertainty? Sure, Lily, he managed, masking his doubt beneath a facade of enthusiasm. If they were going to make this work, he needed to keep the spirit of family intact regardless of the circumstances that surrounded them. The day unfolded with an unexpected vibrancy as they ventured to the local park. Mike watched as Lily engaged the twins in snowball fights, laughter echoing in the crisp air, weaving an instant bond that he dared to believe might flourish. His heart warmed at the sight, but as he observed their interactions, self-doubt lurked at the edges of his mind, questioning his every move. Was he taking on too much? After the initial thrill of the day waned, they settled on a park bench as evening loomed. The chill in the air suggested that winter was not done with them yet. He took a deep breath and turned to the twins. "What are your names?" he asked gently, wanting to recognize them as individuals, not just as the burden his mind often painted them to be. They exchanged nervous glances before the older of the two, a girl with bright, inquisitive eyes, spoke softly. "I'm Mia, and this is my sister, Zoe." In that moment, as their small hands gripped the edge of the bench, Mike realized the enormity of what he was experiencing. This wasn't just a duty, it was a chance to be part of something transformative, a rebirth of sorts for him and perhaps for the twins as well. A wave of determination rushed over him. He could shape their lives. He found himself conjuring plans of how they could build a new normal, a wholesome home. Mike envisioned family nights full of activity, laughter, and warmth, but the looming reality of Clara's visit and the future uncertainty still prodded at him. Returning home, Mike felt the comforting weight of Lily clutching his hand, her trust ignited a flicker of hope. Yet, just as his spirits lifted, Clara's visit flashed through his mind like an unwelcome intruder. He had managed to avoid discussing the stark realities of social services, but they were unavoidable now. That night, after tucking the twins in, Mike found himself seated at the kitchen table, a cold cup of coffee in front of him. Details of the twins' residency loomed large, alongside his responsibilities to Lily. What could he say to Clara when the truth of his situation unraveled, revealing layers of complexity? Did he even know if they were fit to stay with him? The very thought threatened to choke him with anxiety. With the clock ticking down the hours until Clara would return, Mike found himself wrestling with a gnawing worry. Was love enough to build a family when the world around them felt so precarious? The shadows of doubt and fear loomed larger, and just as he steadied himself for the inevitable showdown with Clara, he wondered, was he truly ready to embrace the reality he had unwittingly invited into their lives? The answer loomed like an impending storm, prompting an urgent question within him. How long could he keep the fragile tapestry of this newfound family intact before it began to unravel completely? As dawn broke, Mike stirred again in the quiet aftermath of a night filled with unsettling dreams. The comfort of sleep had evaded him, replaced by a restless cycle of worries and what-ifs that pulsed through his mind. He knew he couldn't escape confronting Clara, it was a necessity looming over him like the gray clouds hanging low in the sky. This morning, however, there was a different energy. The light filtering through the window infused freshness into the air and urged Mike to face his reality with renewed spirit. He rose, the solitude of dawn no longer a refuge but a canvas on which he could shape his intentions for the day. He needed to channel this energy into something constructive, not just for himself but for Lily, Mia, and Zoe. Descending the stairs, he made his way to the kitchen, where the warmth from the oven battled the winter chill that seeped through the walls. As he prepared breakfast, thoughts swelled around the idea of what it meant to be a father to the twins. Did he truly have the capacity to nurture them, to guide them through a world that had already shown them too much sorrow? The sounds of Lily and the twins gradually flooded the house. Their laughter rang like a bell, drawing an unconscious smile from Mike. As he served breakfast, he watched them interact, playful and full of life. Their bond with each other felt like an anchor amidst the storm, a reminder that they all craved connection and stability. And yet, his concern lingered. Mike recognized this was a pivotal moment, an opportunity to solidify his role in their lives. "All right, team," he announced, breaking through their breakfast chatter. "Today, we're going out for a little adventure. I want to make some new traditions together." The twins exchanged hopeful glances, and Mike felt a renewed sense of purpose. It wasn't just about making them feel accepted, it was about building trust, strengthening their family unit. He envisioned them creating new memories, ones free from the shadows of their past. The rest of the morning was spent devising a plan. They focused on simple activities, building a fort in the living room, a craft project involving colored paper, and a picnic lunch in the feverish sunlight. But within Mike's mind, a more relentless project was underway. He was strategizing for Clara's visit. How could he demonstrate the dedication and love needed for the twins' welfare? Later, as they settled into their makeshift fort, with giggles filling the space around him, Mike paused to reflect. The weight of responsibility hung heavily, yet behind it was a glimmer of burgeoning power. As he watched Lily coax Mia and Zoe into a game of imagination, he discovered a hidden talent for guiding their energy in productive ways. "Okay, how about we make up a story about our fort?" he proposed, a moment of inspiration driving his initiative. It was then he realized that storytelling could be a conduit, a means of bringing their disparate pasts into a shared narrative of hope. He urged them to create characters and wild plots, intertwining their lives in a way that allowed for healing. For the first time in weeks, he felt something inside him shift. He began entertaining the notion that he wasn't just a placeholder for affection, but a potential architect of their new lives. But the echoes of uncertainty crept back quietly. Would Clara view their newfound connection as a positive sign, or would she see it as inadequate? That doubt lingered like a specter, a challenge nestled in the corners of his heart. When the doorbell rang a few hours later, Mike felt that familiar clutch of anxiety. This was it. The moment had arrived for him to confront Clara, exposing the family they had begun to weave together as she would walk into their home, her judgments poised like arrows. He opened the door slowly, desperately searching for the right words, fighting against the tide of panic that threatened to overwhelm him. "Mike," Clara glanced around, her expression unreadable. "What is going on here?" The room was alive with energy behind him, hopeful laughter mingled with the smell of breakfast lingering in the air. And, in an instance that felt suspended in time, a notion crystallized within him: this was not just his reality anymore, it was theirs, too. The time had indeed come to face the consequences of his decisions, bearing witness to how much he had grown. Would Clara embrace their new dynamic, or would she sweep it away before it had the chance to flourish? As Clara stepped into the warm embrace of the living room, a fissure opened between past expectations and present realities. Her presence, sharp yet cautious, felt like an unwelcome intruder amid the laughter of the twins. Mike could almost see the thoughts churning in her mind as they danced among the holiday decorations adorning the walls. The lively atmosphere behind him contrasted sharply with her skepticism, a palpable weight that began to settle over the room. "Clara, it's great to see you," he started, attempting to gather the fragments of his composure. The words felt banal as he uttered them, but he pushed forward. I thought maybe you'd like to join us for a bit. We're working on some storytelling." The air shimmered with desperation, and he felt exposed under her scrutinizing gaze. "Storytelling?" Clara's eyebrow arched quizzically. She inclined her head slightly, peering past him at the fort they had built. "What kind of stories?" "Just some fun adventures," he replied, attempting to summon enthusiasm. "It's a way for them to express themselves." His voice trailed off, shadowed by the uncertainty that hung in the space between them. Would she appreciate his efforts or simply dismiss them as frivolous? The thought gnawed at him, intensifying the pressure of the moment. But he couldn't let it cripple his initiative. He had worked too hard, not just for himself but for the girls. "Why don't you come in and see?" he pressed, the adrenaline pushing him forward, desperate for validation. As they broke the barrier that separated him from the world outside, Mike witnessed a slow transformation in Clara's demeanor. She stepped further into the space, and for a moment, a flicker of curiosity crossed her face. Perhaps it was the genuine laughter of Mia and Zoe that began to chip away at her skepticism. They had concocted a wild tale about a pirate ship and treasure, and Clara's guarded expression softened slightly as she observed their joy. Mike seized this opening, the tension in his chest easing just enough to fortify his resolve. "I know things have been complicated," he began, a thread of sincerity winding through his words. "But I want you to see how far we've come together. It's not perfect, but I'm trying, for them." Clara remained silent, her eyes scanning the room as if searching for validations of his words. The noise of the twins faded into the background, their laughter felt like a siren calling him toward an unknown horizon. He understood it wasn't merely the girls who needed nurturing but also Clara, and by acknowledging the struggles both he and she were navigating, perhaps they could forge a foundation for their new reality. "Mike, it sounds like they're having a great time," she finally admitted, a hesitant smile breaking through. "But you need to understand that this isn't just about today. It's about stability for them and for you." The weight of her words settled heavily, yet a sliver of hope pierced through the lingering uncertainty. He recognized this was not only a challenge to his competence as a father but also a challenge to build a bridge with Clara. It demanded bravery, vulnerability, the very essence of what it meant to care. "Can we talk?" he asked, emboldened by the twins' exuberance. "Not just as co-parents, but as partners in this?" As he anticipated her response, Mike's heart raced. Would she dismiss him outright or engage in a conversation that could birth a new understanding? Could this be the pivotal moment where their tenuous lines of communication began to solidify? Yet as he stood on the precipice of a moment he had longed for, uncertainty threatened to drown out his burgeoning confidence. Clara paused, the room filled with the muffled sounds of the twins engaged in their storytelling game, life swirling around them both. What would she decide? "Let us move to the kitchen," she suggested, her tone measured neither a rejection nor an acceptance. It was an opening, an invitation to lay bare their vulnerabilities. With their next steps mirroring the unfolding saga of the day, Mike took a deep breath. Ready to confront the emerging complexities of their connection. The fabric of their family was fragile, intertwined with threads of hope and apprehension. Would the discussion guide them toward a shared vision, or would it expose the cracks that needed mending? He could no longer afford to retreat. This was the turning point he had long anticipated, where they could either stumble into chaos or build something remarkable together. But first, they needed to illuminate the shadows of their shared fears and aspirations. As they transitioned to the kitchen, the atmosphere shifted, the closeness of the space heightening the tension swirling between them. The warm light cast long shadows that flickered, reminiscent of the uncertainty churning in Mike's chest. He grasped the edge of the table, grounding himself against the kitchen counter, where so many important discussions had unfolded in the past. This was a space of memories, both bitter and sweet, but today it needed a new context. "Okay," he said as Clara settled onto a stool across from him, an invisible wall still lingering between them. "I know we've been treading water. Can we break this cycle? I want to know what you really think about us and well, about the girls." Clara's expression remained inscrutable, but Mike could feel the weight of her hesitation hanging thick in the air. Perhaps his desire for her to engage was blinding him to her nuances, the tiny flicker of her emotions that danced just beneath the surface. Did she feel the same urgency? Did she question if they could build a stable future for the twins? Or was she simply weary, ready to reason with a part of their past that Mike was still grappling to redefine? "I think you're doing an admirable job with them," she finally responded, a controlled calmness lacing her words. "They're happy, but I fear for that happiness when they see the reality of our situation. Kids are perceptive, Mike. They can feel when something isn't right." Her voice had an edge, a tangible protectiveness that surged through her. Yet it wasn't just the girls she shielded, it was a part of Mike, too, her lingering concerns enveloping him like a comforting blanket, even as a challenge. He nodded, the sharpness of her observation hitting him hard. She was right. Their lives could only feel like a patchwork if he didn't collaborate with her to stitch together a more coherent narrative. "Let me showcase that I can be a source of stability," he replied, the conviction in his voice growing. "I want to create an environment where they can thrive, not just financially, but emotionally. Clara, I can't build it alone. Do you see it? Us working towards that together." A flicker of something hope. Doubt. Crossed her features. The weekend chatter of their daughters faded, and in that small moment, an understanding seemed to deepen. She crossed her arms, a defensive gesture that betrayed her conflict. It was as if she was contemplating how to dismantle the fortress of skepticism that had stood for too long. But what does that look like? She asked softly, a thread of genuine inquiry woven into her tone. I'm not here to criticize you, but it has to mean some fundamental changes. Mike took a breath, leaning forward slightly, the urgency of the moment compelling him to articulate his vision. I think we need to be explicit in our intentions. Even small changes, consistency, shared goals, transparent communication. We have to ensure Mia and Zoe feel secure enough to voice their own feelings. I want to hear them, to engage with their fears and dreams. We can lead by example. Yes, but actions have to back those words, she replied, clear-eyed, a challenge in her voice that resonated with authenticity. You need to understand that being a willing participant isn't enough. Stability is built on follow-through, Mike. Her unwavering gaze struck him, and he felt the pull of their past mistakes, the ruins of trust that had long since crumbled beneath their feet. This was not merely a familial obligation, it was a pact, a coalition for the girls' futures that required patience and dedication. He had to confront that truth in himself, the areas where he had faltered, where old patterns resurfaced. I'm committed, he said, a surprising warmth filling him as he recognized his resolve. To making it work. Can we set specific times to check in with each other? Chart progress. Hold each other accountable. Clara nodded slowly, the rigidity of her posture relaxed, if only just. That could work. Mike, you need to let me in as much as you want to hold me accountable. I will bring my best self, but you must do the same. That means showing up. For the first time in what felt like eons, Mike felt the tensions in his chest start to ease, uncoiling like a bruise might fade with time. They might just be on the brink of something galvanizing, but as he mulled over the steps ahead, he couldn't shake the layer of incredulity that lingered. Okay, he replied, swallowing hard. Let us commit to this and let us promise to share our own fears, too. Clara looked at him, her eyes glinting with unspoken fears mirroring his own. There was another piece to this puzzle, a growing connection that could either unify them in unexpected ways or give rise to previously unrevealed complexities. The kitchen, once a space filled with sharp memories, began to feel softer, yet still tinged with rippling uncertainty. They were only starting to carve a more solid path ahead, and as Clara leaned closer, he sensed that their confrontation with the past was not over. What other struggles lay ahead, concealed beneath the surface? Would the truths they unearthed forge an unshakable bond, or would they fracture it further, revealing the very depths of their vulnerabilities? It was time for Mike to confront not just their shared past, but his own evolving role. The silence in the kitchen stretched as Mike processed their commitment to change. The weight of their conversation settled upon him, no longer a heavy burden but an undeniable catalyst. He had opened the floodgates to change, but with that came introspection. Clara's insistence on actions backing their words echoed in his mind, forcing him to look beyond aspirations and toward execution. As they stood in the familiar territory of their kitchen, Mike realized that he must confront the very essence of his capabilities. Could he indeed become the pillar of stability he envisioned for Mia and Zoe? It wasn't enough to merely agree on principles, he needed to embed that conviction into the fabric of their daily lives. Determined to shift from discussion to action, he made a mental note to implement small, tangible changes. After putting the girls to bed, he would have a dedicated hour set aside for family discussions, time for everyone to share fears and dreams, to build the trust that had been so fragile. This was not just about the girls, it was about their foundation as a family, too. The following morning, he awoke before the girls, the cool morning air invigorating him as he prepared breakfast. The ritual felt different, he was determined to make this a sanctuary, a daily renewal of the promise he had made to Clara and himself. He flipped pancakes with precision, imagining the laughter that would soon fill the room. As he poured maple syrup, the thought struck him, how could he have forgotten the importance of the little things? The girls stumbled into the kitchen, their hair tousled with sleep and eyes reflecting curiosity. "What's for breakfast, Daddy?" Mia asked, her voice bright with enthusiasm. He could feel the stirrings of joy, the urgency of his newfound purpose flooding into this simple exchange. "Pancakes. Just the way you like them," he smiled, pushing aside any remnants of doubt. He wanted them to feel valued, to understand that their needs mattered, that he was present and engaged, unlike times before when his distractions had caused them to feel unsteady. As they sat around the table, giggling over syrup spills and stories of imaginary monsters, Mike caught Clara's gaze from across the kitchen. She was watching with a spark of tentative approval in her eyes, and a surge of pride rushed through him. He was doing this not as a duty, but as a choice. Though satisfaction washed over him, Mike's resolve was punctuated by the remnants of his past. Each laugh from the girls felt precious, yet he couldn't ignore the shadows lurking in his mind. What about the nights when he had drowned his worries in work? The times he had missed important moments because he chose to indulge in distractions rather than confront challenges? Later that afternoon, while everyone played in the yard, Mike sat alone on the steps, reflecting on those decisions. He understood that true commitment wouldn't just be about showing up physically, it required introspection and a willingness to face his inadequacies. With every layer they peeled back, more was revealed, not just about Clara and the girls, but about himself. Clara approached, sitting beside him in silence for a moment. "You're really making an effort," she observed, her tone softening. "I can see it." "Thanks," he replied, honesty coloring his voice. "But I also see how much I have to work on. It's a little scary, to be honest. Facing up to responsibility, to being a better father, it's overwhelming." She nodded, the ghost of a smile hinting at her lips. "Every journey begins with uncertainty. It's what we do next that defines us." Her words struck a chord deep within him, and he realized this was about more than just creating stability, it was about transformation, his transformation. They were entering uncharted waters, and though fear loomed large, so did potential. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over their small corner of the world, Mike felt a twinge of excitement mixed with anxiety. He was ready to reinvent his narrative, to embrace the role of a responsible parent and partner, but clarification was needed. Clara was right, their time for sharing fears also required vulnerability. "I think we need to have another talk soon," he said, meeting her gaze directly. About our past. About learning to forgive ourselves." The hesitance he saw reflected in her eyes told him they were standing on the edge of something significant, a confrontation not just with the past, but with their own identities. But what real changes would emerge from facing that dark realm? Would acknowledgement become the harbinger of growth or expose deeper fractures? Mike sensed that the deeper they grazed into personal history, the more they would unlock truths, potentially rewriting not just their story but reshaping their future. The looming confrontation would echo beyond the kitchen, spiraling into their individual journeys of growth. As night enveloped the day, Mike braced himself for the potential upheaval that lay ahead, a moment where they would pounce into their past truths and emerge changed. What revelations awaited them in their tales of regret and hope? Only time would tell. The fading lights signaled the close of another day, but to Mike, it also marked the beginning of something infinitely more complex. The conversation he knew lay ahead with Clara weighed heavily as he glanced at the chaotic remnants of their earlier family gathering. Toys sprawled across the yard, laughter still echoed in the corners of his mind, but the laughter felt distant. What impact would their revelations have on this joyful atmosphere? As the stars emerged timidly against the backdrop of dusk, he felt an urgency pressing inward. Understanding the weight of their past was essential, yet he dreaded what might surface during their forthcoming discussion. Could he handle the emotions that lurked beneath the daily surface of life? What hidden angers or fears would emerge, compelling him to confront his deepest vulnerabilities? His gaze shifted to Clara, who now stood by the back door, her expression pensive. There was a time when vulnerability had become a barrier, a shield they both deployed to fend off deeper examinations of their feelings. What would happen when they stripped away those defenses? Would they find fortitude or tear at the very fabric of their relationship? That evening, determined to navigate through this ocean of uncertainty, Mike initiated a family tradition of sharing stories. Gathering the girls as they settled onto their favorite bean bags, he carefully curated tales of adventures young and old. He watched their expressions, delight evident as he conjured whimsical elements to the narratives. The joy radiating from Mia and Zoe ignited something powerful within him. Here was a tangible testament for his efforts to forge a new reality, a mix of laughter and the warmth of genuine connection. After they tucked the girls into bed, the air within the house shifted. "Let us talk," he said finally, his voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of apprehension. Clara nodded, her expression transforming from curiosity to resolve. They made their way to the living room, a space now shadowed, punctuated by soft glows from scattered lamps. The moment of truth loomed. Sitting across from one another, the comfortable distance had evaporated. "What do you want to uncover?" Clara asked, her tone open yet cautious. I think we need to talk about our mistakes," Mike started, his heart accelerating as he uttered those words. "Not just mine, but what we each did. The weight of unspoken expectations." Clara held his gaze, the tension palpable. For a moment, Mike considered the many agonizing paths they had both navigated. The overwork, the communication breakdowns, the weight of unspoken resentments had molded their lives into a stiff semblance of happiness. Transforming that into vulnerability felt paradoxically terrifying yet liberating. "Okay," Clara said softly. "You first then." He hesitated, contemplating his long-ignored fears as if unveiling a wound. "I never wanted to let you down. But it felt easier to avoid discomfort than to confront it. I didn't see the distance growing between us." With every confession, they peeled layers of painful truths, exposing hidden depths of fear and regret. Clara nodded, her expression softening. "I did the same. I needed you, but instead of expressing that, I withdrew." The rawness of their exchange ignited a new level of intimacy, nudging aside the barriers that had grown thick with time. This revelation, he realized, could be transformative. Were they both willing to own their roles in the narrative? Would they find strength in honesty, or would the secrets weigh them down further? "I'm ready to confront this," he stated, drawing in a deep breath, feeling emboldened. "We can either drown in this together or finally make it through." "Agreed," Clara replied, her voice steady. But alongside that strength, Mike sensed her uncertainty, lingering, an invisible shadow that had not yet dissipated. Clara's introspection pulled him back to his own, fueling his drive to dig deeper into their collective fears. What if vulnerability unveiled buried secrets even darker than he had expected? The nagging thought gnawed at him. As their conversation delved deeper into the complexities of their past, Mike felt himself stepping onto shaky ground, yet driven by an insatiable need for authenticity. What fragments of truth could change their trajectory forever? What painful revelations awaited? The path to healing loomed ahead, unclear yet enticing, and he could not shake the feeling that there was more to uncover. The discussion veered into quiet acknowledgement as Clara lowered her gaze, contemplating the journey ahead. Would they emerge transformed or risk shattering completely? With the weight of connection on his shoulders, Mike braced himself for the potential fallout, recognizing that their revelations could forever alter the contours of their lives. And as the night deepened, Mike found himself questioning, were they equipped to confront the ghosts that threatened their steadfast foundation? Only by facing their greatest fears could they potentially rewrite their story, but the real test lay ahead. What shadows would emerge once they delved into the anguish of their pasts? Only time could unravel the truth. The stillness around them felt almost suffocating, as their shared admissions hovered in the air, dense with emotion. Mike's heart raced, each beat a reminder of the stakes laid bare before them. He was past the point of no return, launching himself into the unpredictability of their vulnerable truth. Yet, there was some flicker of hope nestled in the chaos. Perhaps honesty could rebuild the bridge they had nearly forgotten how to cross. Clara shifted in her seat, her hands twisted nervously in her lap. He could sense her mounting anxiety. "What if we unearth something we can't handle?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Beneath that apparent tremor, Mike noted fierce resolve. She was wrestling her own apprehensions. We've already been living with the weight of our silence. We can handle this, he asserted, more to himself than her, as if trying to reassure that trembling thread of hope. Let us face it together. Clara met his gaze, her expression a mixture of fear and stubborn defiance. Together, she echoed, as if solidifying their joint commitment to the journey ahead. That he inhaled sharply, willing himself to be brave, acknowledging how each confession clawed at long-buried emotions. I can start by saying that I resented how we used to sweep everything under the rug, he declared. It made me feel weak. Like I was living in a facade. When you withdrew, it felt like I was losing my anchor. Her eyes widened, reflecting hurt but also understanding. I thought that if I didn't burden you with my feelings, I was protecting you. But in the end, I just built more walls. A silence fell, textured with unspoken revelations and flickering doubts. For the first time in years, Mike felt a strange blend of liberation and fear. Sharing burdens could either lighten their load or expose deeper wounds. Both outcomes coiled tightly around his chest. What about you? He ventured, pushing the boulder of expectation back toward her. What fears did you bury? He needed to know she was prepared to share just as he had, otherwise, this would all amount to little more than an exercise in vulnerability, a moment suspended in time, but without substance. She hesitated, biting her lip as if weighing the gravity of the truth she was about to reveal. I feared you would leave, she confessed, her voice trembling. And every restraint I put on my feelings only made it worse. I felt like I was losing you, not just as a husband but as a friend. Those words struck hard. Mike's stomach clenched as he recognized his role in Clara's retreat. In doing nothing, he had unwittingly pushed her away. The realization doused him with guilt, but it also birthed a sliver of clarity. This was the first time they had talked about the darkness rather than avoided it. I want to move forward, but I need to know that you're with me. That uncertain plea hung in the atmosphere, heavy yet hopeful. I am, she affirmed, her voice steadier now. But we both have to work on this. We can't keep revisiting our pain as a reason to pull apart. We have to reclaim our strength. Mike nodded, appreciating the intent behind her words, both inspiring and daunting. Could they really transcend their wounds instead of letting them dictate the narrative? What pushed him further was the acknowledgement that transformation required more than just intention. It required purposeful actions and, more importantly, a commitment to transparency. Could they explore the roots of their pain, and would doing so lead them into a new light or deeper into despair? As they looked deeper into each other's eyes, Mike sensed something else flickering, a tenacity to rise beyond the scars of their relationship. He felt emboldened, yet a tiny voice whispered doubt. Were they ready for the unfiltered truths of their past? Just then, a sudden noise from the girls' room broke the intensity of the moment. Their laughter sprung through the thin walls as if punctuating the gravity of their conversation. The sound struck Mike a reminder that amid their struggle, the innocence of their children lay untouched by adult complications. We might not have the answers now, he said, breathing deeply, but I think it's time to be open with them too. They deserve to know us, flaws and all. Clara nodded, the spark of acceptance reflected in her eyes. The path ahead was unclear, fraught with uncertainty and potential missteps. Yet Mike dared to believe they could learn not just to live but thrive in authentic connection, one layer of defense at a time. But beyond the warmth of the moment lay unanswered questions, a lingering doubt about just how deep their work would need to go. What else lay hidden in the shadows of their past? This new chapter demanded courage as they stepped forward once more into the unknown, and Mike felt the urgency mingling with fear as he thought about what real honesty would require. Would they uncover truths that threatened to fracture their resolve, or would they find the liberation they desperately sought? Only by diving deeper could they see what awaited. The depths of their connection had yet to be fully explored. The momentary laughter floated through the air like a fragile promise. For Mike, it served as a stark reminder of what was at stake. He turned back to Clara, determination sharpening his focus. They had committed to transparency, and it was time to delve deeper not just into the wounds but into the landscapes they had neglected. "Let's take a risk," Mike proposed, his voice steady and insistent. "We've done enough avoiding. How about we start by inviting our girls into this space of honesty? They're old enough to understand some things." Clara's brow furrowed slightly. "What do you mean? Do you think they're ready?" "Not the painful parts," he clarified quickly, "but what it means to be real. To not hide our struggles." He could see the hesitation wash over her. "But one tea that just confused them. They're children, Mike. We're supposed to protect them from our mistakes. Are we really protecting them by keeping them in the dark? They need to see us grow, even if it's messy. Don't you think that witnessing our struggle might give them tools for their own lives?" Clara's gaze softened. A light he had hoped for emerged in her eyes, a sign that she was considering the possibilities. "You might be right," she conceded. "But how do we approach them without overwhelming them?" Mike leaned back, letting the idea simmer in his mind. "We could start small. Share what it means to embrace imperfections and be vulnerable. Teach them that it's okay to seek help." He felt a rush of purpose, a plan coalescing around the unformed thoughts swirling in his mind. Clara nodded slowly, her earlier defenses dropping as she absorbed his intention. Taking a breath, Mike recalled moments from his own childhood, growing up under the weight of unspoken feelings. "We've both fought bravely but alone. It's time we showed them that strength is also in community, in leaning on one another." Clara's eyes flickered with interest, contemplating the new direction they could take as a family. A quiet realization flashed across her face: this wasn't just a challenge for them, but an opportunity to redefine what family meant. "All right," she finally agreed, a hint of resolve in her voice. "Let's do it, but I think we need to prepare ourselves. To embrace whatever feelings come up for us too." "Absolutely," Mike acknowledged, grateful for her willingness to engage. He felt an invisible thread weaving tighter between them. It felt different this time, more focused, less guarded. With their children's laughter still echoing in their ears, they shifted from their conversation into a practical plan. They settled into the living room, the cozy warmth of the space now felt charged with potential. They each took a corner of the couch, aware that their upcoming conversation would require them to navigate both the joy and gravity of their truths. "Let's revisit some family stories, and weave in our truths when the moment feels right," Mike suggested. "We can find grounding in what they already love." Clara's nod was reassuring, but beneath the surface, Mike sensed her lingering tension. He could relate, confronting the potential interpretations and emotions of their children felt daunting. Yet, he recognized the growth inherent in this journey, not just for themselves but for the girls as well. As they began creating a family narrative with laughter from passages of holiday mishaps and tales of overcoming obstacles, Mike felt a change ripple through him. The act of reclaiming their shared story sparked something within. Navigating conflict was part of life's fabric, not a barrier. It breathed new forms of resilience into his understanding of parenthood, but deep inside, anxiety flickered. What if the truths they shared unearthed deeper rifts rather than healing? Would their girls see their struggles as weaknesses or sources of strength? Determined not to dwell on fear, he pushed forward, eager to establish a framework before those moments of vulnerability arrived. Yet, as each story unfolded, Mike's heart raced, anxiety clawing back in. This was catalyzing an unintended exploration of his own fears. Was he truly ready to open this dialogue? Or would hidden complexities from his past resurface, threatening everything he was now striving to build? The evening drew on, and the challenge loomed heavily ahead. Courage was needed, not just for the girls but for Mike and Clara too. The challenge of sharing their vulnerability with the children awaited. Would they be able to navigate these waters together, or would the commitment to honesty fracture under the weight of hidden fears? Only the conversations to come would reveal the depths of their commitment and whether love could truly transcend buried pain. Days melded into weeks, and the once strained atmosphere surrounding their home transformed into warmth infused with new traditions and daily rituals. Mike harnessed every moment with a renewed spirit, keen on fortifying their family unit and embracing the role of both father and guardian to Lily, Mia, and Zoe. Fueled by determination, he established weekly family meetings designed not only to share experiences but to ensure open communication among them all, fostering a sense of belonging. As Clara and he conducted these meetings, the girls blossomed. They enthusiastically shared dreams, hopes, and fears, even tackling uncomfortable subjects, unraveling the web of familial ties that had previously felt strained. No longer did Mike feel like an imposter, he was solidifying his place as the anchor they all craved, yearns for the feeling of security. The first time Clara looked at him with unwavering pride, praising his efforts in listening and validating the girl's emotions, etched itself in his memory. It was a confirmation, a recognition of the persistently growing connection between them. With each small success, Mike felt his confidence soar. He was becoming the nurturer he had always envisioned. Celebratory moments became more frequent, fueled by shared achievements. Each weekend, they'd embark on new adventures, hiking to nearby lookouts, crafting handmade gifts, or cooking meals together. It became a tapestry of joy, true to their newfound commitment to each other. Family traditions solidified, and they even initiated Crazy Hat Day, where everyone would don the wackiest headgear they could find. Laughter bound them even tighter, but even with this momentum, Mike recognized shadows of his past lingering. A fear of failure occasionally surfaced, threatening to unravel the threads of their progress. One evening, while lying in bed beside Lily, he glanced at Clara as she quietly curled in bed with Mia and Zoe, the moonlight casting a soft glow across their faces. Here lay his purpose. No longer was he just passing time, he was building a legacy, and that realization fortified his resolve. The following Friday, Clara had a planned review with her supervisor, a crucial meeting that could determine both their futures, and Mike instinctively knew this moment demanded his support. He proposed a surprise dinner celebration post-meeting, an evening set aside to honor their challenges and victories, both large and small. Just the thought of rewarding progress brightened the heaviness that sometimes hung over their dynamic. As the evening approached, anticipation filled the air. Mike prepped a homemade lasagna rich with layers of flavor, pouring heart into every detail. The twins giggled as they set the dining table while Lily hummed melodies of their favorite songs. It felt like true teamwork, every member gaining recognition for their efforts. When Clara returned, her expression bore the weight of the day, but that lingered smile, the one that lit up her entire face, was enough to ease any former tensions. As they settled around the table, laughter flowed, stories exchanged, and Mike basked in the glow of their existence together. Then, surprisingly, Clara raised a toast, capturing their momentum so beautifully. "To new beginnings," she said, eyeing each of them in turn, "and the strength we find in each other." Their glasses clinked together like a symphony of the heart. In that moment, Mike allowed himself to bask in profound pride. They had constructed a sense of purpose that, while still vulnerable, felt sturdy. After dinner, Mike took a moment to reflect in his study. It was in this quiet space that he could anchor his thoughts. He recognized the transformation he had undergone. From fearful uncertainty to solid commitment, he had cultivated a belief in himself that had long eluded him. It wasn't just that he had embraced a role, he had forged an identity as a devoted father. Then, it struck him, the very purpose he felt exuded from within would remain if he acknowledged his own growth. No longer defined by the chaos of his circumstances. Mike confronted his past mistakes as a component of the tapestry that shaped his present. With accountability came clarity, an acknowledgement that while he may have stumbled in the past, today forged a different road, one of resilience, choice, and undeniable love. Not only was he nurturing the girls, but they had nurtured him. The echoes of their laughter and shared moments served as a reminder of his purpose, the legacy he yearned to instill within them. With this recognition came an instinctive urge to embrace the future alongside Clara, as an equal, unified by the commitment to confront both their pasts and the lives they hoped to build. As they settled in for a family movie that evening, Mike felt something shift within him. For the first time in years, he felt wholly confident in who he was becoming. There were no longer doubts wrestling in shadows, only a spark of contentment that illuminated the path ahead. It was a journey that had tested his endurance and desire to grow. Mike knew he had succeeded professionally and personally, conquering his fears one conversation at a time. He was no longer merely existing but had become an active participant in his children's lives. It was a legacy angelic, warm, and more than he had ever hoped for, one he was proud to uphold. Now that they were collectively thriving, he took another breath, smiling inwardly at the love billowing around them. With Clara, Lily, Mia, and Zoe there, the future no longer felt daunting. This was his family, his responsibility. Together they would venture forth, meeting every uncertainty with shared strength, and as the movie played on, boxed within the quiet of the evening, Mike felt an indomitable sense of culmination. He accomplished not just as a father, but as a human. It was a monumental realization that solidified his confidence and resolve. This was the moment he had been waiting for. He had not only faced his past but crafted a narrative of hope and guidance for his children, who would now inherit a legacy of love built on the very foundation of honesty and resilience. His heart swelled with gratitude, for he understood now more than ever together, they had all achieved something extraordinary. Now, dear audience, you need to show your support for this heartwarming journey of personal transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm that brings these incredible tales to life. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. This powerful tale of growth is something everyone should witness.